Good morning. I have a classical game to share with you now. I am playing it. It's quite weird to make a video whilst my clock is ticking down. I forgot to start the video. Well, I just forgot that I wanted to film this. My thoughts whilst playing a classical game. So I'll go through the opening in a minute when it's my opponent's turn to move, and I'll let their clock run down as I explain to you what happened. But this is the position. My opponent has just moved their f1 bishop to c4. And that attacks my f7 pawn. Firstly, me noticing that pawn is attacked was live. That me telling you that was me noticing that, because I just had been setting up my camera whilst my opponent was making their move. So on the emotional side, my heart is beating quite fast. Classical games, well, any sort of chess is quite stressful for me. Not in a negative way necessarily, but just it is a stressor. And my first instinct is just to castle. It looks like that bishop is developing with tempo, but I don't think it is. I think that given that I wanted to castle anyway, my previous move was to develop my knight, sort of ignoring the fact that their knight had just come in. So I've got two enemy knights in my territory, but I think I had enough time to consider it, and I don't actually think right now it's a particular threat. And the thing to note though is I didn't see that bishop move with tempo, but I think I can still just go ahead and castle. There's nothing stopping me doing that. So if castles, and bishop takes f7, rook takes f7, knight takes f7, king takes f7. There are no horrible knight forks. This knight can't do anything special, I don't think. And this queen can't come in because this knight would attack. So the queen can't come into a5 with check. She can, but the knight will take on a5. Okay. Again, I'll go through this, but I still can't play this move, or at least I can. There's no point me playing it because I'm not really threatening to take that knight. Obviously, right now, I need to do something about this. So I'm pretty sure castling is the right option. Is there anything else to consider? I could block with my bishop developing it, but then takes on. So I could develop my bishop to e6, but then bishop takes e6, pawn takes e6, and then I have doubled isolated pawns in the center, and I don't see the point in doing that. I don't see what I'm getting out of that. I am developing a bishop, I suppose, but I don't think I want to actually trade off my bishop in that way. I'm going to do a last blunder check. So if I castle, my king is on g8. Are there any checks? Yes, the bishop takes, as we mentioned, but then the rook takes. Are there any other checks? No. Not even spite checks. The white queen can't really come into g4 because the knight covers that and the bishop covers that. So there are no quick attacks on my king side. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm interested now as to whether they're going to take that pawn, or whether that was just a developing move with the bishop. Oh, what did they do? They took. Okay, that's cool. So I think it's essential to just take back. And then I don't believe they have got enough for that. So in this case, I can. I think just go with the queen. But I didn't see this move either, so this is interesting. Probably defend with the queen, but where? Ah, now my queen is pulled into not defending this point. Is there a way for me to avoid this happening? This is very good from my opponent. It's fair play. So I'm up a knight at this point. So I don't have to defend it. This is good. This is taking a moment to reduce the stress of what's just happened and realize that I don't have to defend that rook. Although if I don't defend it, I'm down in the exchange. But that might be better than being down two rooks for two pieces though. Okay, so one move I could make is knight to, don't want to make it, knight to a6. The point being that if takes, then I'll have to probably just go to the edge of the board. I don't have to, but that's what I'll do. So takes, bishop takes f6, f7, and I would go king h8. I'm down the exchange, but this is now covered. This square is now available for me. So they would probably want to castle at that point, because otherwise I can put my queen on d3 and, well, they'd be able to come back with their bishop at that point. But for a second I'd be stopping castling, which would be quite nice. So I'm just looking now a little bit at stuff like queen b6, bishop c5, knight g4. Basically doing symmetrical stuff, attacking this pawn in the same way as my pawn has been happening. Not just out of retaliation, not just because I'm spiteful, but also just thinking of counterplay, trying to think positively. In that position, my queen is eyeing up this queen through the knight, but it is defended by this bishop, so it's not as juicy as it might look, as it might otherwise be. So let's just map this out. So we have an idea of queen f8, bishop takes f7, queen takes f7, queen takes f7, king takes f7, knight c7. Attacking my rook, which can't move. We can go knight to a6. Knight takes rook. Now these two squares are covered. The two knight escape squares. It's now just taken the rook. It can't escape to either of these squares just at this second. And I could then push this pawn and attack it with this bishop. Well. And then, does that actually work though? Okay, let's start again. So, queen f8. Bishop takes rook. Queen takes rook on f7. Maybe queen takes queen. I mean, almost certainly queen takes queen, because they want to play this knight move and they can't play it now because their queen is undefended right now. So queen takes queen, king takes queen. So we've lost all these pieces. These pieces aren't on the board right now anymore. So king takes queen on f7, last move. Knight to c7, attacking the rook. Knight a6. They could take that knight, but there's no point. They would just be exchanging it because I can take it. I'm defending it with two pieces. This bishop is still here, so it defends quite nicely. They take the rook on a8. I can push this pawn because the rook can't take my knight because it is still defended by this bishop. That's nice. I push the pawn. All I'm doing now is threatening that the bishop comes to b7, attacking that knight. Now, this is tricky. I feel like we've gone so many moves in, I'm almost certainly missing something here. But can white escape with that knight. Can the white knight escape? Yes, maybe. That now... Oh, no. I was going to say the rook can take on a7, but it can't because the knight's there. The knight's there. Come on. Focus. My heart is racing. Like, I'm sure this is... I've heard from enough people that this is quite a common experience, but it's such an aggressive, violent game, chess. You're like being attacked. Pieces are coming in and you're like, oh, and it's like in slow motion because, you know, I've just been playing this one move for the last 10 minutes or longer and nothing's happened, but I can feel the pressure's building. The pieces, they want to take my pieces that are surrounding my poor helpless king, which is going to be pulled out to the open. What's going to happen to my king? And so it's quite a stressful experience. I think I can get that knight. And then, okay, imagine then, I don't know what move we got to. Pawn push, white breaks in the center maybe. I don't know what I really can't see what they're doing to get that knight back. So let's just imagine for a minute that I am right and that I can get that knight. So white castles to get their last piece sort of into play. Let's just assume the bishop on c1 is in play. I put my bishop on b7, attacking the knight. And the knight thinks, okay, yeah, I'm cooked. Let's, okay, I've thought of a way they can defend. So instead of doing that instead of castling, so we got, I think the last move was this knight move to a8. And then I pushed the pawn. Instead of doing that, they pushed this pawn, opening the doors to this bishop. This bishop is going to be... I looked at it coming this way. It was too slow, but actually we can open these doors and it opens the doors. And if I don't do anything, if I just put my bishop here on b8, on b7, like I mentioned, then the bishop can come here. And oh no, it's still not fast enough. I thought that then the knight could then escape back to c7, but actually it's not fast enough if it does that. I don't think. All right, let's... I can't see how it works. No, we wanted to evaluate. That's the point. So in that position, after the knight goes, okay, fine, you've got me. I'll take a pawn. May as well take a pawn. The pawn takes pawn. Knight takes pawn on b6. Pawn takes knight on b6. So now we are black has a knight in that position. Black has a knight, a bishop and a knight. Because we've lost this one and we've lost this one and sadly this one. But white has lost this, and this. So we're two rooks and a bishop versus two bishops and two knights. So I'm not doing too badly in that line if that does happen. Yeah, I think two knights and two bishops, all the minor pieces versus the two big majors, the two rooks and a bishop. I think we're doing okay. And we went down a pawn in that line as well. But I think that's the best we can do. So I think we're going to go with that line. I think the only alternative is to go down a full exchange. I know we're taking too long on this move, but partly it's because I'm trying to explain it out loud. Back here, I could have just pushed this pawn. I was thinking there's no point pushing the pawn because it doesn't threaten the take, but it does give my rook an escape square. Live and learn. What would we want to do instead though? Like what's a good move instead? Pushing now, so that this knight jump isn't really doing much in a future world. So if push, take, so push a6, attacking the knight on b7, b5. Knight, bishop takes rook on c7. King moves over to h8, c7, f7. King moves over to h8. The knight doesn't have to move because it's not yet really threatened. Could move my queen to b6. Now there is a threat on the knight, so the bishop could come back. but then it gives me a bit of time. If the bishop did come back to defend the knight, then something like knight f4, g4, attacking the pawn, castles, and then bishop c5, doing similar things to what white was doing to me, but probably not as effectively. I think I like that position better, because either way, in that position we are just down the exchange, so we have all our minor pieces and a rook versus 3 minor pieces and 2 rooks. What's that in points? I know it's not that important what the points are, but I think it's good to make sure I'm not completely miscalculating and thinking one's just perfectly normal and one's not. So that's 9 add 5, so we've got 14. 12 add 5 is 17, and they would have 19. Yeah, I have 4 minor pieces for 2 minor pieces. I think maybe I did this. I'm just not great at remembering all this detail, so that does depend on me not missing something that means that white can escape with their knight. That's an important factor as well. Let's go for it. I think this has a better chance of me fighting for equality. Okay, let's just quickly go through the opening. So I don't know exactly where I got to. So they've already played their move. They're not giving me a chance to talk about the opening. Come on. Take it back. Why not pre-move it? Give me a little bit of time, please. Please. Maybe they won't notice their queen's hanging. No, they noticed, of course. So interesting that they're taking a moment to think. Okay, no, that's fine. We'll do our plan. Stick with the plan. Yep, okay. Don't think anything's changed. Not that I can see. But if we look at the pieces, we're not quite in an, I don't know, we're in a dangerous position because they still have both their rooks. I have no rooks. So I'm not sure if my king being on f7 is an advantage or an easily exploitable weakness, but the fact that I have 4 minor pieces, I'm quite happy with that. I don't think I am known to be overly optimistic about my king safety, or at least not concerned enough about it. So potentially I am in a scary position here, and I should be more concerned than I am. I do like the prospects for this knight eventually, which I didn't mention before, but partly because I had quite a lot of other things to consider. So whilst my opponent is thinking, I'll just show you what happened in the opening. So this morning I woke up and realized that I probably should do a little bit of preparation. So I went on to the Chess Dojo scoreboard and had a look at my opponent's white games, because I knew my opponent was playing white in this game. And they play e4, and the only game that was in the database was black playing what I wanted to play anyway, which is c5. And they played this, which I've never seen before. It's called the wing gambit, W-I-N-G gambit. And I found a friend of mine sent me a Andrus Toth video actually on some anti-Sicilians and how to deal with them. And the first one was this wing gambit. So I'll link to the video in the description to this video, so you can go and have a look at it. It's a really good video, and I like his first point, which is the psychology of people playing against gambits, and they think, oh, someone has prepared something and I shouldn't take because it's scary, and I'll just be playing into their prep. So instead I'll play something like very defensive, and he doesn't like this move at all, just like d6, some terrible move like d6. So he gave a line and it pretty much panned out. So take the pawn, and then white's follow-up move is normally to either play d4 or a3. And I knew that in the only game that my opponent played that I could look at, he did play a3. So if in that case, don't get greedy, don't take that. Now black sort of counters in the center to try and get some space and to develop. And I know it's my move, but I'll just quickly explain this because I keep trying to explain it and then I keep getting interrupted by my opponent making moves in our game. How dare they? takes back, queen centralizes. The knight can't, in this position, come here, which is very nice, which is one of the reasons why we didn't take that pawn, disrupting the queen. Keep expanding. Pawn takes pawn. Bishop takes, developing. Pawn, this is all what Andres had in his video. So pawn harasses the bishop. Bishop comes back, not quite back to the home square, still developed on e7. The knight comes in, threatening this and this. We'll never allow this, obviously. This is never going to happen. And you just push, knowing that if b5 comes, knight b5 comes, you can meet that with queen d8. And then my opponent did that, and this is the end of my preparation. And then I probably went wrong immediately and didn't see this whole idea of bishop. I should have pushed. I think this is probably what I should have done. Anyway, let's get back to the game. Let's get back to the game. I've got a game to play. So bishop to a3. So imagine if I ignore that and I simply play here. Bishop takes bishop, king takes bishop, both on e7. Knight takes pawn on b6. Pawn takes knight on b6. I'm looking at what happens if in the eventuality of the rook ending up on what it wants to go to, probably, which is a7, sorry. I think I don't need to allow, I don't need to worry about this move. Or at least I don't need to help out my opponent doubling up their rooks eventually. I think I can just play my plan, which is to get this knight. Bishop can take bishop on d7, on e7, sorry, and king takes on e7. Knight takes pawn on b6. Pawn takes knight on b6, and I can actually move the knight. My point was going to be, I can't say if white then castles, I thought I couldn't move the knight straight away, because if then to c5, because then the rook could come down and infiltrate on a7, pinning the bishop, which is now on b7 to my king. But actually the knight does cover that bishop and protect it, and this pawn can't come straight in to attack the knight because of this pawn here. Looks a bit perilous though. I think I've got to go for it. I think that's enough. I at least know I can defend that bishop for a little bit and probably get out of that pin by moving my king. Let's give it a go. Yes, yes, yes. Takes, takes. You've just saved this b pawn and lost this beautiful, essential e pawn. That's probably what they would say. Yeah, that's what they're saying. Yep. Okay. Well, I don't even need to worry. Oh, I do need to worry. Okay. So I can't just take straight away because this hangs. So, but I can move. Okay, let's think this through. I've got 13 minutes. We're fine. We are fine. No, I can't move the knight out of the way. Oh, I've messed this up, haven't I? Oh, there's too much to think about. So long ago, I probably needed to think about this, didn't I? I can't just take that knight with the bishop because it's hanging. The knight's hanging. Oh, so I've got a lot to do. I'm probably just going to run out of time. They're probably going to find something. I can move over. It all seems a little bit desperate, doesn't it? All of my moves are just in service of getting back a piece, which I will... I'll then be punished because the rooks are going to swarm and cause havoc. I was going to say, could I be more aggressive or more forward, pushing my pieces forward, but then this move just stops that. This was covering this square, but yeah, this pawn move stops that. I think I have to play this move. Oh, dear me. I'm missing quite a lot of things here. So if I end up in that situation and my king's here and my bishop's just taken here, and this knight's out of the way to save the knight, then this is just a fork. Oh no, it's not quite. It is a fork, but I can move back with the bishop. But I have lost a pawn there. I have lost a pawn, and I'm in a pin of my own making. Okay. Could I come this way and defend the knight? No, the rook can just come over at any point. The F rook can just come over and sort all that nonsense out. I think this goes to show my thoughts about whether I could have, in fact, get this knight fell foul of just how many moves it would take to do that, and just how hard it is to calculate lots of different moves, and even like noticing that this is going to hang if this happens. That's a basic one, really. But also noticing that this pawn is very weak, and yeah, there's just a lot of things to consider that I did not consider. If I get out of this pin, like this pin, by moving my king down here, I'm just going to do this now, then they double up, and I say, well, not so fast. You can take a pawn, but then yeah, that doesn't work either, because then that's defending that, and I'm just too slow to get this knight here. So I'm just too slow to go there and then there. If my king wasn't on that square, I could, in this move, go. It would be crawling up into a ball, but it may still work. King d7 and then king c5. So king d7, rook f to a1, and then king c5. But I can't do that. And I can't go that way either, because that pawn's there. This king and this pawn, they're in my way. This is a shame. This is a shame. What if this, so let's say the names. King c6, king f to a1, king b5. If the rook comes to b2, to b1, the king just goes back. It goes back to a1, king just goes back. The pawn could distract the king. Ah, the pawn could distract the king. That's not good. Yeah, that stops that idea completely. This is terrible. And 5 minutes left. Just terrible. And I can't even do this and this, because that knight will just take it. I'm looking at now like counterplay. But it's just too slow, and it's not even that much of a threat. No, it doesn't. This, as soon as rook takes f7, a7, then the b6 square is now available for this knight. So that doesn't work. What if we start with that to stop that stuff, but then we're just too slow? There's just not enough time. I don't have enough time. The knight can't yet escape. My knights are out playing games. I think that's as good as I can do. But it's not great. It's still not great. So this knight covers the knight's escape squares, which is nice. It can be kicked. Yep. This knight moves. What I'm basically saying is, yes, you have kept your knight, because you managed to do that and I couldn't stop you, even though I hoped to do so. But I am going to put pressure on it and say, you can't escape with it. Okay, maybe I can go here instead. So do I go... If I go down, I'm basically saying, hopefully one day I'll get this knight. But I think that's just pipe dreams. If I go up, I think I'm being more realistic and I'm defending this pawn. I don't need to get the knight if it's always trapped on a8. But of course it'll find a way out. I won't be able to anticipate all their moves. But we've also got rooks having to defend it. That's the thing. This bishop, if the bishop stays in this diagonal, which is quite a nice diagonal, then they're going to have to defend. I will make this move. Oh, it hurts. It hurts. They're up 2 exchanges and a pawn. Is that right? Yeah. God damn it. But are they up 2 exchanges? Come on. They've tied down to defending this knight, like I've just mentioned. One of the rooks, they're not playing with both their rooks. they're not playing with both their rooks at all. If they ever decide, look, we're in great shape. We might be winning. This knight is out of the game. We all know that. This king has it under control. This knight doesn't even have a job. It can go and have fun somewhere else. So the king is perfectly safe. It's not got the knight to worry about. The knight has the king to worry about. So the rooks can't get to it because this lovely pawn is doing a stellar job, and the pawn in front of the king stops any checks from above. So then, thinking of further ahead or more deeply, this rook has a responsibility. It's not just one rook that has to do stuff. If this rook on the 7th rank, usually that's great. That's fantastic. 7th rank, pigs on the 7th. Wow, amazing. Well, not so amazing. What happens if this rook goes and tries to rally, get a pawn under its sleeve? Then, whoa, hello, cheeky knight maneuver, and suddenly this rook is completely trapped. I don't know what that really does. My opponent has just pushed their c-pawn. What has that done? It's weakened this square. So my knight could go to there. But I kind of want to eye up this pawn. And if I put my knight here, then it's 4 moves away from that pawn. So instead, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This way, they can't do that, stop this, so that's fine. I might look like I'm threatening something. They might just think I'm focusing on that. I know I've got 151 left. I like it. I'm going to go this way. That you may. I don't really see what the point of that move is yet. If I go here, if I go knight to d3, this pawn is now quite weak. The pawn on c6, b6. But I can't see how. Oh, I can see how. I can really see how. Okay. So I've just realised what I've done. I'm going to have to go here. I'm going to have to go knight c to d3. Because if I go the other one, then I lose this pawn with check. All over the place. Not noticing things. Oh, that would have been perfect. It would have defended the pawn, and I would have been on my merry way, and I wouldn't have distracted both my knights. Didn't notice the threat. What does this move do? This move undefends that pawn, or takes a defender away from that pawn. How can white attack that? They can attack the undefended knight, and it puts the knight on an undefended square. So they can attack the undefended knight, and the knight can't go back. So yeah, we just have to crawl up in a ball in the center of the board, and it's not good. Now these knights are doing the worst thing, and they're just using each other as defenders. Okay, I didn't expect that. I'm gonna have to do that. Yep, the knight can escape. Didn't notice that. Forgot that my king had a responsibility with a minute on my clock. But if they do that, they lose a pawn. Small victories. Stops this check as well, forking my pawn and my king, if I did move my king forward again. In this position, my opponent has just... I need to keep an eye on my clock because I've got 42 seconds left, but this isn't the live position. There's been 2 more moves played, or 2 halves, one from each side. So, oh no, I actually moved my king up. So they moved the rook up there, I moved my king up, that was on camera, and then they took the pawn with their knight. I think being a little bit too fancy, or at least maybe not noticing, I don't know. But basically, I think being a little bit too fancy. So they were obviously expecting me to just I have to take back, and then I'm temporarily three minor pieces to two rooks, but then they would take my knight, I would take back, and then they would take my other knight. So now it's with check. So then it would be a rook versus a bishop. Excuse me, a rook versus a bishop, and they would be also up 3 pawns. So, not great. But instead of taking that knight, I noticed that I could do the intermezzo bishop c6. They can't do this check, which I did notice when I played this bishop move because my bishop covers it. They can't go here with check because this knight, this rook is here. It may be that this is the mistake that I needed my opponent to make because I was losing, and I'm probably still losing. I don't know exactly how to evaluate this position, but let's think about it. I think the fact that they've got these two extra pawns really does make things difficult. What's their best move? Because if they move away with the... Oh, it's the... Wow, that was timing. Jesus Christ. I mean, this knight is pinned to my king, but... Yeah, I can take with the pawn. Oh, didn't... Yeah, of course. That makes sense. They're basically still getting what they wanted, but they have lost this pawn. Yeah, now... No, what's this? I almost took that, but then that would mean that my pawn would fall because they'd be able to give a check, threatening this bishop, and I would have to come here, and then this would be another check. I wouldn't have to come here, but I could come here. So what if I'd, instead of doing that, what if I... Whew. I'm in such danger of losing on time because I keep forgetting I'm so down on time. So I think I might be able to get that pawn. Maybe if I went on a little wander with my bishop. Can I threaten anything in the meantime to make these bishop moves a bit faster? No. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's not. It's no faster. It's slower, actually. It's slower. Okay, let's give it a go. Yep, that makes sense. How dare they? What do they think they're doing? How dare they move that pawn? What a situation. Yes, you can push that pawn. Well done. Oh, dear me. This is just terrible. That's the end of the game.